How do you zoo, ladies and gentlemen? How do you zoo? That sounds like a play on words, doesn't it? But we really mean it. How do you zoo? Most of us visit our zoo on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays when Mom, Pop, and the kids can get out for a gala holiday together. And most of us go for the animal shows, such as those made famous by director George P. Verheller at the St. Louis Zoo. Record crowds, sometimes more than 50,000, attend this famous zoo over the weekend, jam-pack the modern amphitheater where the monkey shows go on. They're off to a thrilling start. The happy chimps take their daily canter on streamlined ponies scaled down to size. Here's an easy one if you know how to do it. There is one more chimp than pony, and someone is bound to be left at the post till the next trip around. Looks easy, but ask the trainer. This took long hours of patient work. Uh-oh, looks like a touch of rodeo. Will he be able to hang on? Shucks, says the chimp, that's nothing. I haven't seen the horse yet that couldn't be tamed by my Spanish fandango. So it goes, two chimps and a ball and a barrel of fun, producing a show that is loved from coast to coast and justly world famous. Time out for refreshment and to wander around the grounds before going to the next show. This time it's the elephants. How's this for a hula? 2 tons of it. They say an elephant never forgets, but we wonder what little Eva remembers. Training's the thing, long hours of it before the show can go on. But it's fun for the animals as well as the audience, and a great tribute to the trainers. Strike up the band. If anyone gets off key, give him a squirt, and these are the boys who can do it. And so to another show, a veritable storehouse of entertainment. Say, wait a minute, who's that calling from the sidelines? Hey, says Rocky Raccoon, why don't you come over and see us? We've got a show here, too. And it's true. The side pits and small cages of any zoo provide many good shows that are not on the schedule. Brother Coon is busily washing his dinner before he'll take even a bite. Nor will he let anyone wash it for him. He must do it himself. And boy, does he make a mess of it. Bears are sometimes called the raccoon's big brothers because, in many ways, they do things alike. These are the sun bears from far-off Malaya, bidding for our attention. They're one of the few tropical bears, but they are at home in any kind of climate. Here at the zoo, they lead a happy life and love to show off the tricks they have taught themselves. Carlos knows one, a very spectacular trip on the spare tire, if he can only get those feet up. Attaboy, Carlos, the daring young bear on the flying trapeze. And he says he learned it without anyone. Uh-oh, well, maybe it wasn't worth it. Woe is me, alas, alack, say the young Kodiak bears. What with those fancy chimps and trained elephants and the natural antics of the coons and honey bears, how can we ever get people to come see us? Oh, unhappy day. It is indeed a problem, one that we may never be able to solve. Oh, fiddle-faddle, says the head of the house. Don't be so downcast. If only I hadn't eaten that extra carrot, I'm sure I would think of something. Why should you worry about human beings anyway? It's all rather boring. If you take my advice, you'll just put out the lights and go to sleep. Nothing like a little snooze. But bears, on the whole, are pretty good natural performers, especially around dinner time. Notice the spacious pits in which they are housed. There are no bars, only a moat separates them from the onlookers. In wintertime, they hibernate in cave-like cages inside the simulated rocks. Everything possible is done to make the animals comfortable. This polar bear comes from the vast solitudes of the far north and is equally at home on land or on the water. The soles of his feet are quite hairy, enabling him to retain a firm footing on slippery surfaces. Polar bears love to dive, which is unusual for such large animals, and they are excellent fishermen. They can even do tricks like this when given some help from the cameraman. I think he deserves an extra fish, don't you? Well, it's a far cry from the icy north to the tropical wastes of Africa. But here at the zoo, it's just a few steps down the path. If you saw this fellow in Africa, you would head for the nearest tree, for this is the dreaded two-horned rhinoceros. They're unintelligent, bad-tempered, tough customers. If they want to, they can swing their weight around remarkably fast. While we're in Africa, let's have a look at a member of the horse family, which usually comes in for a lot of joking about the color of his stripes. Of more importance to the zebras is the fact that their stripes blend into their natural background, making the animals difficult to see as they stalk through the African night in search of food. Well, what's this coming up over the mountain? None other than our old friend, the greater kudu, one of the 135 different kinds of antelope to be found in Africa. Obviously, only the male could support such horns as these, which sometimes go to 3 1/2 feet in length. What a lot of fun he could have with a bunch of toy balloons. No trip to Africa would be complete without a look at a giraffe. And that's about all you're going to get because Ida is very shy. Aloof, did you say? Well, she ought to be, for giraffes are the tallest animals in the world. Forgive the corn, but it's true. A few steps down the zoo's path, and you move from Africa to Australia. We arrived just in time for lunch at the wallabies, or kangaroos to be less specific. Very nice people, the kangaroos. We entered the pit quietly so as not to disturb them, and they sat quietly eating their lunch while we made these close-ups. But all the time we had the feeling that something was about to happen. And our hunch is right. Lunch over, the original guided missile takes off and you're never quite sure where he's going to land. Notice the difference in size between the front and back legs and the use of the tail when he stops. Say, do you realize how far you go when you take a few steps in a modern zoo? From India to the Arctic regions, to Africa and Australia, and back to North America. That's quite a few thousand miles even for such long-legged birds as these. These are the cranes, the pelicans, the storks. As these more spectacular birds pass in review, we realize how much has been written and photographed about their life story. For the moment, suffice it to say that they play an important part in any well-rounded zoo. Here we come to a group which the zoo calls the South American pampas scene. The pampas, once the bed of an ancient sea, has been turned by civilization into a great cattle and agricultural area. But the foothills and surrounding mountains are populated by wild animals. And here a group of these animals live in perfect harmony. The wild guanaco and the more domesticated llama and alpacas are members of the camel family. Inky sees the camera and charges forward, but this alpaca is only interested in the food box we filled. Not so with old Rubberlegs, the llama. He comes down with all his dignity to make an investigation and pose for his picture. Well, these peculiar animals look like they tried to be elephants and just couldn't. They are tapirs, part of the South American pampas scene. They are very shy and inoffensive, going about at night in the deep forests in the neighborhood of water. Nothing looks so much like a log as the members of the crocodile family, until the alarm is sounded. As we leave the South American scene, we drop in at the reptile house to see how these unattractive young fellows are doing. Essentially a water reptile, they live as a rule in sluggy streams and powerful strokes of their flattened tails. For there are many interesting and humorous sights, not only scheduled shows, which await you at every turning.